Could you describe that process again?
Yeah. So these two zines are hectographed. This is the hectography process. It's also known in scouting as jelly prints. And basically, what they did in the 30s was to take a pan, and that pan would then be filled with a gelatin, sort of like a jelly compound. Then they would take stencils, and there were pens in various colors, and stencils in various colors for typewriters. So they could both draw, they could make drawings with the pencils and the crayons, or they could use the other whole colored stencils. This is purple, which was sometimes called deep purple. This was the most common color that was used for the zines, and it eventually became the most common color for all kinds of both hectography and mimeo. And that stencil then would be placed down on the jelly, and after just gently patting it down, the stencil would be lifted off, and the images and the text that was on the stencil would now be in the jelly. Then clean sheets of paper would be placed down on top of the jelly and then pulled back off again, and this is what they would look like. And then they could only get about 40 good copies. And when I say good, the last copies were always a lot worse than the first ones. But they could pull about 40 copies off of one pan of gelatin. And so it was a limited process. But you could do amazing things with it. The colors and the color combinations of some of the hectograph zines, I wish I had some of the more colorful ones here to show you, but they're amazing. This is a really interesting little cartoon. Your subscription has expired. This was one of the things that was constantly being sent out to people that had subscriptions to zines. And don't forget that a lot of the zines would cost a dime, and a year's subscription would be $1. And you know, people's subscriptions would expire, and then whoever was editing the zine would slip something like that in. An interesting point is that the way that, so this drawing is by Ray Bradbury. One of the things that they figured out was that they could cheat the post office out of the rate that they would have been charged for legitimate subscriptions by constantly calling every issue the last issue. And so what you'll see when you're going through a lot of the old zines from the 30s and early 40s is that there will be three issues in a row, and they're all called the last issue. And that was because for some reason the post office didn't, I guess, charge in full if it was the last issue of the magazine. And so they did this over and over again. And so many different other kinds of ruses to get past what was, for probably a lot of people, a small amount of money, but for a lot of the fans it was probably, you know, a good chunk of money. Anything they could do to save a little bit of money, sharing equipment, sharing mimeograph machines.